Welcome to Power Talks with Santosa. With this episode, we complete the first season of Power Talks. Nepal, which is a developing country, should we worry too much about this recent crisis of economy?
Oh, I think we all have to be very worried. I think that it's a very tough year ahead.
Right.
The projections from most of the experts is that we can't really look forward to beginnings of a recovery until the second half of 2010. Most of the projections are for the world economy to either stagnate or grow very slightly. And Nepal can't escape.
Now, we hear so much about the Middle East conflict. We even hear about the peace process, the peace talks. Can you elaborate on the Middle East conflict? It's still very confusing for us.
The Middle East conflict, I think, is confusing for many. I think that the common knowledge about the Middle East conflict is that there is a core issue, which is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And had you only resolved this conflict, everything would be resolved in the Middle East, and the Middle East would be transformed to a kind of a Shangri-La. And it seems that the reality is much more complex than that. Sadly, since the establishment of the State of Israel, the Arab states around Israel made it a case to use the Palestinian issue in order to weaken Israel and finally to liquidate it from the map. Later, they realized that it will not be possible. Egypt and Jordan signed peace agreements with Israel and put an end to circles of war and to bloodshed that I think left so much agony in both sides.
Inclusiveness is a subject that Danish Embassy has been supporting in terms of awareness campaigns throughout the country. Despite the fact that Nepal has become a republic and we are supposed to share equal rights among our people, marginalized groups which consist of a majority of population still suffers, especially Madeshis, Dalits, Janjatis, and women. How far are we from the reality of inclusiveness?
We have a philosophy of that everybody should have equal opportunities. We are not equal, we look different, we have a different brain, we may have been born by poor people or by rich people, but we should have equal opportunities. We have that respect for each other. Now, your society has been built on a caste system. There were differences. Nonetheless, the demand now from the people of Nepal is we are equal and we should all be inclusive. We should all be part of it. And I read that as a demand for an equal share of the wealth of the country, and it is a demand that you and I should be in the same boat.
The conflict and war between the government and the LTTE has claimed over 60,000 lives and displaced even much more.
Exactly.
How do you see the future of your country in terms of achieving peace and harmony?
Now the government, under the leadership of His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa, he has given a very clear signal to the terrorist groups that if you don't surrender, you will be wiped out. So it will happen. So they are confined to a very small area, keeping the nearly 40 to 50,000 civilians as human shield. I mean, if they try to get out, they'll shoot them. They have killed several thousand of civilians like that. So that is the problem that the government is facing, how to get these civilians out of their hands. So that is why it is taking fairly long time. Otherwise, it would have been few days.
Are you satisfied with the performance of your government? Do you see that your government will sustain?
It should, because our sustainability is also dependent very much on the whole country's sustainability. Let me tell you this again, because it is we who brought this agenda, and we have a plan to solve this, we have a plan to save this country, especially at this historical juncture when both the countries, the neighboring countries, India and China, which has a great stake in the whole region, and because the region, South Asia and the whole Asian region is again dependent on the world, you see, because now Asia is the place where economic agenda is picking up. We feel that people are with us, only few of the retrogressive forces are trying to create hindrance.
The terror attacks has been on the rise in India, and I think a secure Nepal, especially the border, would be of paramount importance. Post Madhes Andolan, we have seen a lot of coverage in the local media in Tarai about the rise in the criminal and terror activities. What is Nepal and India government doing in this regard?
This is a very key concern for India, which has been a target of terrorist attacks. It is a subject that we've taken up at the Home Secretary level talks between the two countries. On a pilot project basis, we are already starting a process of monitoring movement of people and goods at some of the points on the India-Nepal border. This will help us to ensure that the open border, which is actually something which helps the people of both countries, is not misused by terrorists for their own ends and leading to a problem on maintaining this open border.
We have witnessed a continual variation in the exchange rates of euro versus, or of euro and US dollar.
Yes.
Has this in any way contributed to the imbalance in global economy?
When you have such big flows of financial transactions which do not correspond to any particular real increase of wealth, you have multiplier effects, and these multiplier effects may end up in what mathematicians called unstable systems, where small variations in one factor may have a chain effect to much bigger variations further down the chain of transactions. And when these transactions are not backed up with physical assets or physical products or physical investment, that's where you get